Hi there, this is Don McGlynn, and I'm the director and co-producer of this project called Bop. It's a multimedia project where there's going to be a book, there's going to be podcasts, there's going to be radio air checks heard, and of course there'll be a documentary. And as you may know, I've done an awful lot of music films over the years, many different kinds of genres, and I'm returning to jazz again, which has always been a favorite of mine. This is also a very exciting project for me because I'm going to be working with a co-producer friend of mine who I've known for many years. His name is Cantor, and he's quite well known for being a film archivist, and he documents the history of jazz very well. So it's going to be a nice cooperation, and I'm very much looking forward to working with you, Mark. Tell me, Mark, why do you think this project is so good? I think one of the reasons is there's an enormous amount of really fine footage that shows the birth of bebop, and some of my favorite people were filmed, and there's just enough to actually make a really good, roughly 2-hour documentary.
Well, we're really fortunate for music that was not necessarily commercial, back at the time at least. We have an incredible amount of footage available to us that documents the development of the music and its sort of growth in the late 1940s and its triumph in the early 1950s. And to use all of that footage in our documentary means that we can illustrate just about every aspect of bop's development.
That's true, and for instance, there isn't a lot of footage of Charlie Parker, but there is some. And it's really wonderful. I mean, he plays a great solo on Hot House with Dizzy Gillespie.
Well, here we're actually doubly fortunate. We not only have the footage, Charlie Parker and Dizzy Gillespie appearing on the Dumont Network back in, I believe it's 1952, but when you see the documentary, you're going to see that clip in better shape than you've ever seen it before because we are working from the original kinescope, not a dupe, not a copy, but a kinescope that was discovered many years ago. We have the original. That's what Don and I will be using in the documentary.
One of the other highlights of this film in terms of film clips is we have the best print in the world of Dizzy Gillespie's really great picture called Jivin' and Bebop. It was shot in 35 millimeter. And, there are few people as charming as Dizzy Gillespie. One of the reasons I really love doing this project is I would watch these clips again, and it just put a smile on my face because people like Dizzy were having such a good time. Helen Humes is also in that clip. It's wonderful. Billy Eckstine also made some films in the middle 40s, and he's very charming. And, of course, a favorite of mine, Harry the Hipster Gibson, is this peripatetic wild man behind the piano. And it just makes me very happy to share these different clips in the context of this and the invention of this music.
I think one of the things, building on what you've said, Don, is the fact that these musicians were not only enjoying themselves, but it really comes across so clearly on the screen. Dizzy is communicating directly with you as if you were the only person watching this film. The Billy Eckstine Band, again, he is so into this production, and it's direct communication with the audience, and that's what makes this project so special.
One thing that I think is going to also make this film very interesting is a friend of mine named Gary Malika is an addiction counselor, and he's an enormous fan of this kind of music, and he's giving people, in an interview we did, he's giving people an insight on how these musicians were shaped by the times that they lived in and also by the psychological problems that they had to confront. So while this film is going to be very enlightening and fun and charming, we're also going to deal with the deeper issues that were shaping these musicians. Now, we're not just going to have all the bebop greats, and having them sort of invent this music out of nowhere. We're going to show where it came from. In the 30s and early 40s, some of these great people like Count Basie and Cab Calloway and Lucky Millinder were hiring a lot of these people, and they sort of learned the ropes by observing these people and how great they were as musicians, but also as showmen. And maybe, Mark, you can tell us about some of the clips we'll be seeing.
Well, Don, whether this music was evolution or revolution is something that we'll deal with in the documentary, and people who are on the scene at the time will weigh in on that matter. But with the films, we can clearly see the music developing out of the swing bands into the small group jazz of the early 1940s. And we can see this music blooming like a stop motion flower that suddenly opens up and shows its incredible beauty. And in this case, that beauty is the music we call bebop.
Now, one thing I want people to understand too about this documentary is I actually was drawn to it because of the excitement in the music, and then I was sort of reaffirmed in my interest in doing this project because it's so fun and it's so charming and the people are having such a good time doing it. But I also think there's something very interesting and illuminating and intense about this story that'll make it so that it isn't just for music fans. This is just for people who want to experience, what our country was like during those tumultuous times of World War II and into the Cold War in the 1950s. So keep an eye out for more podcasts. And don't forget, each week we're going to be showing, we're going to be sharing different radio air checks of the swing era and of the bebop era and the cool era to show how this music developed. And we'll be posting things once a week.
Hey Boppers, Kian here. That was Mark and Don talking about some of the things to expect in future installments of Bop. We leave you with Billy Eckstein's air check of I Want to Talk About You, a John Coltrane favorite. We have several rare and illuminating air checks coming soon, so be sure to follow us on Facebook at Bop the Multimedia Project. Bop is produced by Don McGlynn and Mark Cantor. Podcast producers are me and Franny Alfano. Till next time, thanks.
Don't tell me about a night in June or a shady lane beneath the velvet moon. Don't tell me, 'cause I want to talk about you. That waterfall, or that grassy spot where crickets softly call. Don't tell me, 'cause I want to talk about you. The moon and the stars, the objects on Mars, are things that we've talked of before. But your love for me was the question. Your answer threw back heaven's door. Your love will be sincere, then my darling, you needn't ever fear, 'cause I love you, and I want to talk